I'm Christy.
And I'm Kathy.
And this is The Psychic
And the Skeptic. Welcome to episode 4 of our podcast. This episode is going to be all about spirit photography.
Ooh. Hey, everybody.
So, first, we're going to talk a little bit about the history behind spirit photography, how it all started. It actually seems to be maybe one of the first methods for paranormal investigation. So we have lots of photographs, and this is where the skeptic is going to shine in me, because this is one of those things when it comes to paranormal investigation that there are a lot of super simple logical explanations for a lot of pictures. And we're going to talk about the different anomalies that show up in pictures and some of the explanations according to photography that can explain why the picture looks the way it does and disprove or debunk it from being a ghost.
And I am going to jump in here, though, and say that I have taken quite a few photographs myself, and I have no explanation for them either. I was hearing something or I was feeling something at the time that I took it, and voila, it showed up. So no matter how much someone wants to debunk those things, which is fine, I still know what I believe.
Sure, and I want to also put a disclaimer out there that, I'm an open skeptic here, so I don't want to necessarily toss everything as, or debunk everything
yes, she does.
As not being paranormal. That's my job, to try to.
I know.
Because the point is, sometimes people will send us a photograph, and my question is, did you see what you captured and that's why you took the photograph? Or did you feel something that compelled you to take a photograph because you felt like you were being watched, or you weren't really sure what that was that you were seeing, so you pulled out the camera? So when we investigate, part of determining if something is paranormal or not, many teams also feel this way, it's stronger evidence when there's more than one thing happening at the time of the capture of such evidence, whether it's a photograph or an audio recording. So if somebody's feeling or hearing something at the time, and then you take a photograph, or the story I mentioned with the teenage boy that had passed, and this family had us come investigate their home, and they had a shrine to him, and there was a little tiny ball of light that went up the wall that I witnessed and nobody else did. Now, if I then took my camera out and took a picture of that, which I didn't have on me at the time, we were still just getting a tour of the home, that could have potentially have showed up in a photograph, and that would make it more compelling for me as the skeptic.
And how would you be able to tell that apart from a dust orb?
Well, you have to take that person's word for it. So usually when somebody comes to me on let's say a public event, when we're doing a public investigation, or if we have a client that shows us photos, or people send us their pictures to our Facebook messaging, and I'll look at those photographs, and usually my first question is, did you see this at the time you took the photo? So I'm not necessarily going to say it's not paranormal, but 99.99% of the time I will probably say it's not paranormal.
Right, and in fact, a lot of times whenever we do need a really good logical explanation or to try to figure out if something is paranormal, Kathy is our go-to gal, because she, I will compliment you and say that you have this great ability to think logically about a lot of things when it comes to photography, right?
Well, I've done a lot of reading. I took a photography class way back in high school, but it was a long time ago.
Now. Watch out, folks.
That was a long time ago. But I have an interest in photography. There's a lot of technique in taking photographs that can create images that look very interesting.
And I know our team has also done some experiments with slower shutter speed.
Right. We want to try to recreate. That's the scientific viewpoint. Mm-hmm. If you can recreate the anomaly, it's not likely that it is paranormal.
Well, and you have to talk really about the different type of the light field. And the reason for that is because you have different types of spirit photography as well. But how did all this start? Like, what is the history? When was the first...
Now you're talking my language. I love history.
Well,
we both do.
Girl, you know me. I'm a history nerd too. Let's think about it. The photographs have been around for a long time. But
yes.
Who and when and where was spirit photography actually found out about?
So the earliest known spirit photograph, now photography was around longer, but the first time potential spirit has been captured in photography was in the United States in 1861. So this is mid 19th century. And during that time, a lot of paranormal investigation was starting to be pretty popular.
So I wonder if that could be because of like believers, and there was a civil war going on at this time, right? And so there was a lot of loss of life,
right?
People wanting to connect with their loved ones.
Exactly, right. So this became a thing, and people were offering to take your photograph in hopes to capture spirit in that image. So William Mulmer, he is the first person who took that photograph in 1861, but he's most famous for taking the portrait of Mary Todd Lincoln.
Right, Abraham Lincoln's wife.
Right, so you know more about that photograph.
Yes, actually, Mary Todd, she actually believed in the paranormal, right? The spiritual world. And she was very distraught after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. And she really wanted to connect with him. She would say that she felt, his spirit around. And so this photographer guy, what was it?
William Mulmer.
Yes. He actually tricked a lot of people into saying, hey, I can capture the spirit of your loved one. And you can actually see in the photograph, Abraham Lincoln's arms are like around Mary Todd Lincoln. He's like standing behind his wife.
Yeah, you can Google this photograph.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Right. So Mary Todd Lincoln photograph, and you should be able to see that online.
This dude was fraud. He was tricking a lot of people.
Right. He wasn't the only one, though. William Hope was a British medium and photographer, and he was more into the early 20th century when he was doing spirit photography. He used an older camera for this. He used a bellows camera made in 1906. He knew people would be skeptical about spirit photography, so he insisted his subjects bring their own photographic plates. They use these plates for exposure, like their film. He knew people were possibly going to be skeptical about the photography, so he insisted that they bring their own photographic plate to decrease that skepticism. So if you bring your sealed plates, I will use that to take your photograph so you don't think that I'm trying to trick you. But he also allowed them to physically inspect his camera so that, they could see he didn't have anything in the camera to alter their photograph. So they'd sit for the picture, and then it turns out he was replacing that plate with his own plates that he had done an exposure to already. So it turned out the photography anomaly was really double exposure. It was Harry Price in 1922, who was also an investigator of the supernatural phenomenon, but he was a lot like me. He was looking to debunk. And so he accused William of fraud and said that he was secretly exchanging those blank plates for ones with pre-added spirits.
You wonder why some of us psychics or intuitives, those of us that are legit, we can't really get a lot of credibility by a lot of people,
right?
Like
because
when you
of all
just
the
tell
fraudsters.
Somebody that, yeah, right.
Like, one bad apple spoils it for the whole bunch, right?
I know. It's like see it to believe it, folks.
Right, and that's where the skeptics come from. Is you see somebody trying to fake it, and it's hard to believe it. I mean, look at the internet now with AI photographs out there, the AI videos. It's like everything you see on social media, you almost can't believe it anymore.
Well, sometimes I bring that up, when we do a public speaking, like a public presentation, we oftentimes too will do a little game, not only with our EVPs, like what do you hear, but spirit photography as well, right? So AI can generate some pretty cool stuff, but we'll have
we'll
the
put
audience
a sample
guess,
photo.
Right? Do you think this is real or not? And believe it or not, AI has tricked many people. So I can see why some people could believe, but then be upset because something was false.
Right. And there's apps out there now that will add it. And they're fun. They're fun to play with. But it's not fun when people are intentionally trying to trick you into believing. And especially if there's somebody like Mary Todd Lincoln who's grieving the loss of a husband. And here you are taking advantage of that grief and that desperation to reconnect with a loved one. Absolutely. And then you make money off this photograph where you play into her emotions and you place a double exposure of Abraham Lincoln and say, look, he's here with you. And that's just wrong.
It's cruel.
Right.
And didn't you say that one guy, the second guy you were talking about,
Harry Price?
Yeah, didn't you say he was a psychic or medium or something?
No,
spiritualist or one of them.
William Hope, the guy who was taking these pictures, is a British medium and photographer.
British medium my butt. See, there's my skepticism coming in, right? What person, if you're legit.
So, yeah. I mean, we didn't even talk about that. We didn't even talk about his mediumship. He might have been one that was a fraudster on that front, too.
I can almost guarantee he was.
If he was doing it with photography, then I'm sure he was trying to trick people.
Yeah, none of us with true gifts would actually want to harm someone in that way. There's no way.
It's, somebody who genuinely just wants to be there to help people. Well, he was making money off, I'm sure.
Shame on him.
Yeah. So this Harry Price, he sat for a session with this William Hope guy and didn't tell him that he had his personal plates marked with an invisible X-ray insignia on his sealed photos, because he thought, well, he's switching when I'm not looking. He's switching to his own film or plates and not actually using what his customers are giving him. He's kind of being, sleight of hand there with people's plates. So he had this X-ray insignia that should show up on his photograph, and he'll know he used the film that he gave him. And so when he developed the picture that he took, sure enough, it was blank, and that insignia, or that X-ray watermark, so to speak, was not there in the photo. And that's actually available online, too. You can see the pictures that he sent in.
So what did he do? Did he go back and confront him and say, hey, look here, you fraudster?
Exactly. So he was eventually... It was revealed that he was a fraudster. So,
yeah, way back when, newspapers were like the main form of communication or whatever. Nowadays we have social media and, we have the internet.
We know right away.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody's been banned.
Right.
Right. So that's a little bit of history and some of the fraudsters, but I really liked that this Harry Price guy, he's an investigator of the supernatural phenomena at the time, but also working to debunk and reveal the fraudsters out there. So
like Houdini.
Right. And so... and I'm not saying when we have clients that they're fraudsters. They're genuinely coming with pictures, and
they just don't understand.
They're experiencing something in their home potentially. So in your home, it's supposed to be a safe place where you're not expecting there to be any kind of spiritual activity. And so a lot of our clients are really scared. And so they start taking pictures. They might have one true paranormal experience, and then all of a sudden everything seems to be a haunting. And so they're
their
desperate.
Senses are heightened,
right. And they're desperate to capture something to show, hey, it's not in my head. I'm really experiencing these things. So I really do think they had something abnormal occur. But most of the photographs that they send us, I'm able to explain away. And the most common anomaly that we see in some of these photographs are orbs. Orbs. And you know how I feel about orbs.
Oh, and you know how I feel about orbs. I mean,
right.
I think, and that's one of the common things with it. And I try to tell people when they're looking at video or something, they're like, no, look, it's moving, right? I'm very strict on orbs when I look at that in a photograph, because does it self-illuminate outside of the IR field? Most of the times you can walk through a field, turn around, take a picture, and you're going to see orbs everywhere, right?
Well,
Dust off a shelf, take a picture, you're going to see orbs everywhere.
Right. So
I'm not saying that they're not.
Right. And why it's so important for me as the skeptic or the debunker in the group to know if that person experienced what they saw and then took the picture is because of the way cameras work. The visual light spectrum runs from red to violet. That is what we can see with our own eyes. We do have special cameras that can go beyond that and see infrared, just past red. We can't see that as humans. And then on the violet side, what we can't see is ultraviolet. And there are special cameras that can capture images, video, or still photography with that full light spectrum. And we call them full spectrum cameras.
It kind of takes, to describe that, when you take a photograph with that, it does have that pinkish hue to it.
Right. That's part of the ultraviolet.
Right.
When you're looking at infrared, the images are reversed. So what's dark ends up being light. Standard security camera is in infrared.
I think we have gotten a couple interesting pictures on the full spectrum, but not
maybe,
a whole lot.
Maybe, but our human eyes can only see that rainbow, right? cameras can only capture a portion of what we can see with our eyes. So it's a little bit limited in what you can see. So we'll see from red to violet, but the camera's going to see slightly within that field. So I know we have better technology and our cameras are showing better images, but that's in how many pixels you see with a digital photo. But the colors are slightly
Still
less and not as effective at capturing what we see with our eyes. And I say this all the time with people's vacation photos. A picture doesn't do it justice. You got to see it with your own eyes. It's more vivid. You see more of a 360 view of things, obviously. But that's true when it comes to a photograph. So our photograph is not going to capture as much as what our eyes can see. So that's why I ask clients a lot. Because if you see it in a photograph, you should have been able to see it with your own eyes.
Well, wait a second, though. I mean, yes, but no, because I do believe that there are spirits that can be captured in different forms that we don't see with our eyes.
Well, if we're using a full spectrum camera, then the infrared and the ultraviolet could show up in a photo that we wouldn't have seen. So that's why we like using that for investigating. But you're not gonna convince a skeptic about that. Now, I'm open, like, you know me, I'm open to that. Maybe somebody was focused elsewhere when they took a picture. They were looking off in the distance and they're just snapping photos as we usually do. Or you've seen maybe on television, paranormal investigators just taking a whole bunch of photos. We'll talk about different protocol that we use for taking photographs because there's a method to it if you're a legit paranormal investigator.
Okay, so let's take me. When I first started, I was using that 35 millimeter, colored and black and white even. What's the difference between that film? Because I got some what I consider to be fantastic things on that old 35 millimeter compared to what maybe, someone gets on a digital camera today. What's the difference in that?
Well,
is there a difference?
One is actual film. So it's the quality of the film in your exposure. So how long the lens was open, how sharp of an image that you get. And then when you look at digital photography, the quality comes in your pixels.
So do you think that lessens our chances of being able to actually capture something in the spiritual realm?
I think the better that technology gets, the less likely you'll capture.
There's got to be something to that because I know we have previously talked about even our audio recorders. Like we have some that are really, really old and we seem to capture better EVP recordings than what we can do with these high-tech recorders now that filter out all the sound and background noise.
I have a theory on that when we talk about audio evidence, we should have a whole episode on that to come. And
for sure.
Definitely want to talk about the theories behind that.
And I was just wondering if there was some sort of correlation. I mean, we know audio, but, photographs as well.
There's a theory on that. It doesn't quite correlate with the same theories when it comes to spirit photography. Now, when it comes to using photography in paranormal investigations, the newer camera, the better, because you want to have a legit capture, right? So the older equipment is going to be lower quality and you're more likely to capture photography anomalies like double exposure or have things that make somebody think maybe I got something paranormal when in actuality it's not. At the same time, if you're using a cell phone for a camera, we tend to have certain anomalies in your photograph that a lot of people think is a ghost, but it's actually not. So there's a way to explain what's happening when we catch that. But let's back up a little bit and talk about what are the type of anomalies that we see in photography.
Okay. Well, I know in all my years that I have been doing this, I think you would have light anomalies, shadows, mists and apparitions. And I have captured one of each of these.
Right.
And so we can definitely go into the specifics of those if you would like.
Yeah, so light anomalies, that means it's
like a bright light.
White in color, big, small. Do orbs fall into this light anomaly?
I think if they're true orbs, but I also think dust orbs can as well. So remember on the other episode when I was talking about my first time in investigating, we went to that cemetery, right? And that's where I got that EVP that said, "Hi, I'm Samantha," or "I'm Samantha."
Right.
Okay, so I was using the 35 millimeter black and white film, and I felt there was something following us in there. And I know I'd mentioned some shadows and stuff, but I started taking some random pictures, and there's a couple of them, and they're even listed on our website, but there's a couple of those. One of them in particular, it is, I guess, what you would classify as a light anomaly. So you see this like white I call it a doorway. And then coming out of it, you see a ton of these little bright white orbs shooting out of this.
Yes, I remember that
Do you
picture.
remember that photo?
Yes.
I feel like that might have been like a portal opening, right? And then these spirits coming out of the portal.
Right. So that's on our website. We have a photography page, correct?
If you're at the home, our home page or whatever, you can just go to photos, and the photos links will take you right to it.
Okay. So it's right underneath our banner at the top. So.
Yeah, okpri.com/photos.
Right.
Yeah, that'll take you to it.
So the picture that the former musician in me sees a bass clef in there.
I can see that for
Right.
sure. Yeah,
Right.
A little rounded
little preview into some pareidolia there, but that's not quite.
Now, this is not pareidolia. This is one of those things where I was saying, like I was feeling like I was seeing shadows, but I was also feeling like we were being followed, and I just wanted to take some random pictures, and I did. And this, of course, is the ones that I developed at Walmart. And not only this one, but I got another one, and it's on the cover of my book for Spirits Among Us. But it's like this bright white light, and it's right next to a headstone. And again, I can't explain those.
So you were compelled to take some of these photos. It wasn't always just random.
Yeah, and I appreciated the light from the flash because I was a little freaked out there on my first night. But yeah, no, I knew that I was surrounded, and that I was a little freaked out on going because I knew if I could see them, they could see me, right? And so I went ahead and just felt like I needed to take these photos around. And I took more than one photo at one time. You know, I took 2 or 3 of the same spot. And one of the things that I've noticed about paranormal activity is when you capture something legit, oftentimes it happens very quickly, and you may find it in one photograph but not in the next one, or you find some sort of movement of the object. And the ones beside these didn't have anything in them.
And did these light anomalies seem to cast their own light? How do you think it works? So why wouldn't we see it with our own eyes? Why do you think?
It's a good question. I don't know. I didn't even see it with my own eyes, or my psychic eyes, as you want to call it. But
and it was pretty dark out there too. But
pitch black.
But if, for paranormal theory, if spirit is energy and energy is light, then I feel like that's something we should see.
I think energy comes more in the form of not just light, though.
Right.
We know that there's different spectrums
energy is
of
sound,
light.
Energy is light, energy is heat.
Right, exactly.
Energy is cold, yes.
So who was to say? I mean, we don't know when I took these photos.
So maybe this is just one of those things that's not yet understood.
Correct, for sure.
So other anomalies, we've got shadows, dark shadows. Right?
Yes. A lot of people really believe that all shadows are evil. No, that's not the case. I do think it has to do with spirit energy. How much energy that a spirit has to manifest themselves, how much of them do they truly want you to see? Now, I'm not saying that some shadows can't be bad, because I believe that they are, but I don't believe that every shadow is. But I do believe that our cameras are able to pick up those shadows. And we have some on our website on our photos where you can literally see through them. But there's apparently a figure there. And like the light anomalies, I have never captured a light anomaly as far as like in the shape of a person. But when I see spirits sometimes, especially if I am trying to tune in on the other side and pull someone's loved one through, right? I see them as white souls, like white. They look like white figures.
So in your mind's eye, you see
Correct.
a white figure, but we've not captured a white figure on film.
Correct.
Usually when we capture a human figure, it's a dark form.
Yes.
So with some shadows, we've had some clients, one in particular turn in one of our favorite photographs, and I think it's the first one on our website.
Oh,
if you
the
look
one
at
of the
our
little girl that
Yes.
looks like, in the little white nightgown.
So again, the debunking, the skeptic in me, dark shadows in the shape of a human are really interesting.
Yeah,
and
but
so
she don't look like no stain on the carpet, honey.
No,
I'm sorry to tell
that's
you.
what I'm saying. This would be quite the coincidence in the angle. You'd have to get it just right to make it look like this little girl walking around. And the thing that's interesting about this photo, and it's a photo of what appears to be, I mean, it looks a little bit like, if you've seen the movie The Ring, it kind of looks like that creepy girl with the hair, although much cuter and younger than the girl from the movie.
Well, besides that, you don't see this little girl's face like you do in that creepy movie.
Yes, it
The
seems
Ring.
to be that way. It looks like the back of her head.
Yeah, you see the back of her head. It almost looks like maybe she's got her hair up in some princess little Leia
Little
buns
front
on the side,
pigtails,
possibly.
long hair in the back, like a half updo.
Little past her shoulder length for hair, and she looks like, I don't know, what do you think, a white nightgown of sorts?
Well, what's really interesting about this photograph, the homeowner took this picture. He did not see this image at the time. I think he was taking a picture of the room because they just replaced the carpet.
Well, not just that, but also their kid had a lot of experiences in this room.
Well, that's what alerted them. The girl who lives in this room was constantly talking about this playmate that she has that lives in her closet.
This little girl that would come out of her closet,
Correct. She described her as a little girl. He happens to take a picture of her room, and bam, there's a shadow figure of a little girl there. It was just too much of a coincidence for the family. And there were so many other experiences that they had in this home. So that's what I'm talking about when I say there has to be a lot more to it than just a random photograph. It fits the story, it fits the claim, it fits the experiences of what this little girl was describing to her family.
Right.
So we've got light anomalies, we've got dark shadows, there are mists, which I guess you could kind of call that light anomaly as well.
Form of it, I guess. Spirit energy, I think, is what mists basically are, kind of floating around. And we have captured several of those before.
Right.
You know?
And so paranormal investigation teams usually have rules. Like our team has a very strict rule about no smoking, no vaping during an investigation.
No camera straps.
Right. There's also natural phenomenon that can occur when it's getting a little cooler outside.
55 degrees or below, your breath will show. So
so you can
hold your breath when you take a photo. Hold your breath, please.
Especially in cool environments. So mists are a thing that I would chalk up to not paranormal unless it was a super controlled environment like what paranormal investigators do. So somebody shares a picture with us. I can't verify what was going on when that photograph was taken.
Right, we weren't there.
Because it didn't come from us. So most of the time, pictures that are sent to us, I'm not really going to be able to say at all 100% that somebody's captured something paranormal because I wasn't there. That's another reason why I need to be the one to take the photograph, not because I want credit for it, but I need to make sure that the environment was controlled when that photograph was taken. So mists are really difficult for the skeptic to really accept.
Do you need to tell us about a problem you have? Controlling the environment? Are you a control freak? Just kidding.
Yes, I'm a control freak.
No, you're exactly right, though. And like we tell them, this is what we think it could be, possibly, and we try to give them that logical explanation.
Yeah.
And I know that most of the time they thank us, for giving them that information and being honest with them. But I think some of them want to believe so badly as well that they don't accept anything logical. Nope, it's a ghost.
Right.
That orb flying across my camera, it was a ghost.
And I want to be empathetic with our clients.
Sure.
I'm going to tell them how we can logically explain certain things in a photograph. But at the same time, I'm usually saying, now I truly think that you had an experience that you feel was paranormal, but it just wasn't captured in this photograph.
Right. Or, you're the one that took the photo, so you be the one to judge it.
Right. And that's true for every client. We can come in and say, we don't really think your place is haunted, or we didn't experience activity that we would consider to be haunted. But we don't tell them that they're not really experiencing a haunting.
No, never.
There are some cases where we can be pretty sure that everything's been explained. That's something for a whole other discussion. But what's most compelling is the infamous and extremely rare apparition photograph.
Oh, yes. And they are very rare.
Extremely rare, because the paranormal theory is to manifest yourself as a spirit and be visible to the naked eye, or even in a photograph. It takes a lot of detail in that energy to form into a shape that represents this spirit in their human figure, whether they choose to represent themselves as a child, or if they choose to represent themselves as they were at the time of their death. So some of those apparition photographs can be quite disturbing, but they are extremely rare. This is the holy grail for paranormal investigators, or better yet, apparition video. Yes.
I feel like we have been lucky enough to actually capture that in the 25 years that we've been doing this. And I try not to be too defensive over our recorded evidence at all, but I do know when it comes to looking at apparitions. So, for example, I have a photograph on our website, and it's from the 1931 abandoned school, and that place was wild. I'm not going to get into the history of it, but I will let you know it didn't have any electricity, but yet I saw the lights turn on in this place. You just really felt creeped out, like you were being followed. And at one point, I was getting ready to leave the building, and I heard like, I don't know, a noise behind me. And then I felt like I needed to take a picture underneath the stairs. And I did. I took 2 or 3 in a row, and I believe I captured the face and the face and the shoulders of this dark-haired male. And he even looks like you can see his skin tone, which is also something very rare. In apparition photos, you would see the outline, but you can't always see flesh tone.
Or detail.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, you can almost see hair.
Yeah,
maybe
like black
what's
hair.
A receding hairline. I wonder in this picture if it's not a shoulder, but a second person that you see to his right.
Yes, I've often wondered that as well. There's something to the right of him, but I'm not really sure what that is. So it could be another individual. From the placement of it, I don't think it would be, a different body part of himself.
Yeah,
but...
so this picture is on our website as well. So if you go to our website, you can see for yourself and let us know what you think about that photograph.
Yeah, and I took that one. So like I said, that's kind of a weird one for me. There are a couple other apparition photos on there.
There's some anomalies that I can explain. So we've kind of talked about orbs already, but we haven't really talked about, well, what is that? So those circles that you might capture in a photograph can be dust or pollen or other particles in the air. Mm-hmm. We don't normally see them with our own naked eye. And so the flash on a still camera can reflect off of dust and be picked up from the lens.
Right.
So sometimes photographs, it looks like there's an orb off in the distance in the image that's captured, but it's really up close to the lens of the camera, usually within 6 inches of the lens.
Right.
So where your flash is on your camera can affect how much dust and how often you capture a dust or orb anomaly. And with our cell phone cameras, the flash is really, really close to the lens. So it's a lot more common to capture dust, which is why we get so many orb photographs nowadays
or
than
the
what we
green
did.
little floating light from the iPhone, that looks like
Right,
it's
that's a whole
floating light
other
anomaly.
photography anomaly. That is what is called lens flare.
Right.
Right. So that happens when you have light in the image towards the lens. So you're taking a picture outside and you've got the sun kind of in the image. You don't want your light source in front of your camera. You want it behind you, shining onto your subject.
Right.
So you don't want the light behind your subject. But in investigating or in homes, people are taking pictures and not really thinking about other light sources within the frame of the photograph. So they might happen to capture what's called a lens flare. So when that light is refracted on the lens and creates a couple of what looks like circles in your image. Sometimes it's in a line, but that is pretty common. We also get what's called light trails. So light trails happen in low light with a slow shutter speed. So your camera needs to keep the lens open longer in darkened environments.
Oh, okay.
And as still as you think you are, there's going to be ever so slight movement. There's movement in pressing the button that you're using to take the photograph. So you have what looks like a snake of light in your image. So we get a lot of that sent into us, assuming that they've captured something paranormal, when it's really the little LED light or a clock in the image, or when we're ghost hunting, we have all this digital equipment that has a little power source, a little light on it. Yeah. That's going to create a lot of light trails.
Yeah, and even when we tried to go back and take 2 or 3 of each shot, and I know we'll go over the protocols, but there's always going to be some slight difference, and that is because of that movement that we can make when we're actually taking the pictures.
Right.
It's hard to reproduce it exact.
Yeah, if you're trying to avoid some of this, especially the light trail, you should have your camera on a tripod so that you're not actually touching the camera itself. Mm-hmm. So on an investigation, we have certain photography rules.
Right.
So what are some of those rules?
Well, for one, your camera should not have any sort of strap. And the reason is because that camera strap can get in the way of taking the picture, and it comes out like a wicked looking vortex, man.
Or like a snake.
Hair too. Hair's the same way,
That's an old rule, is put your hair back if you've got long hair.
Yeah.
Because wispies of your hair can go in front of the lens as you take a photo, and if you have a flash, it's going to reflect off and look really bright, especially close up to the lens. So all the more reason to have your camera on a tripod away from your face if you're going to have your hair down.
Right. Then also, one good thing is if you're a smoker, don't smoke or vape in front of taking photographs. That will show up as a mist. There's also, like we mentioned earlier, the temperature. Your breath can be caught 55 degrees or lower. So if you're outside, make sure you just hold your breath while you're taking the picture, so that way you don't have this weird looking mist that shows up.
Holding your breath helps with the movement of your camera,
right,
too.
Kind of
because your shutter
speed
is going to be open longer.
Yeah.
Now, on an investigation, I like to take photos before we even begin.
Oh, yes.
One, because it creates a reference of where objects are.
Yes.
Because we've had objects move unwitnessed. We've come back to a room and something is in a different spot than where it was in the first place.
And then we've consulted our photos like, hey, was that there before?
Right.
And
We've
then you see that it's not.
But taking pictures can give you a reference point of where things are in the room that you can go back to later and review.
It's like your baseline. Getting
Right.
a baseline.
Exactly.
So when we do that, of the room and take 2 or 3 shots from each corner.
Yep. We have a lot to delete off our cameras afterwards, so we don't take up a whole lot of storage.
A lot to go through as well.
Exactly. And so part of taking a picture from every angle for object reference, we take 2 or 3 pictures from that same spot each time. Because if you capture a light anomaly, it should be in every photo if it's not paranormal.
Yeah.
We're looking for pictures of things that just doesn't seem right and we don't really have a logical explanation for it.
Right. And I like to use a variety of different cameras as well on an investigation. Some cameras will capture things that others won't, like some recording pieces of equipment. So I may get something on my camera and say Kathy has her camera and, she doesn't get anything ever on that camera. So I do believe that using a variety of different types of a camera, full spectrum, whatever, can help increase your chances of possibly trying to get something paranormal. Now, is it rare to capture something on photo? Absolutely.
Right. Like I said, this is difficult to get because if there were apparitions all over the place all the time, we would have so many more pictures of true phenomenon, or we'd be seeing them with our own eyes. If
some
this
of us
is
do.
with our actual eye, without our mind's eye. That's what I always say about the paranormal. If it was that common, there wouldn't be any skeptics.
Right.
It would take a lot of energy to be able to manifest into something like an apparition. But if it is captured on a photo, I still 100%, especially with today's photography, feel that should be something that we saw with our own eyes.
Well, we can agree to disagree on that.
Sure.
Because again, okay, so here's another example. This was from the Lost Church. And I've showed you these photographs before, right? And they're on our website as well. We were investigating this church, and the story says that the preacher was very strict. He would take willow branches off and swat the kids in church who were misbehaving, but he apparently died of a heart attack in the middle of the aisle. And this investigation was very unique for me in the fact that I witnessed a lot of paranormal activity. We even had the floors bleed at one point and had it tested.
Ooh, I wish I was there with my forensics kit to test that blood on the floor.
And we have tested at a couple places with forensics.
Yes.
But at this place, we were there with a couple of other teams. And I swear, this one lady that was there, she just talked all night. Like, she just didn't shut up for nothing. And there were several of us that were kind of getting aggravated at her, trying to be nice and professional. But I sat down on one of because it was like old wooden benches in there. And I sat down. Yeah.
Okay.
And I sat down on one, and then that lady was talking. She was up toward the stage area. And I heard this man's voice to my left. He said, and this is a cuss word, so heads up, but he said, bitch. And I believe he was calling.
So you heard that with your actual ears too, not just through psychically, or you're not sure?
No, I think probably psychically, or maybe I did hear it. I don't remember anybody else saying that they heard it.
Do you feel that was directed towards you, or you just...
No, I think he was directing it at that other lady up there on stage.
Okay.
Because she was the one talking at the time. I didn't
residual.
say anything. No. Well, now
Could've
this
been.
leads me to say no on residual because I heard it from my left. So I turned left and I took my 35 millimeter camera and I started taking a series of pictures. And you'll see in this series of pictures, there's this light anomaly sitting not too far from me on this wooden bench, and it's very small. And the next picture, it gets a little bigger, and the next picture, a little bigger, and the fourth picture, like really big. There's this, what I call spirit essence around it. You may call it lens flare, but when I got the pictures back, I looked at the negatives. And honestly, it looked like a cluster of grapes is the best way I can describe it on the negative. But honestly, in this photo, it looked like someone was sitting there kind of like with their head down, like if they were in
Praying.
prayer. Yeah. So I say that to say, I can't deny that. Cases like that, I don't care. You can try to debunk it all you want, but I know that that's legit.
Right, because you were following all of the rules of paranormal photography.
Absolutely.
No fingers in the way
Oh, yeah.
of the lens. And I've seen these pictures too, and so your finger would have had to move as you took these photos. So you're very self-aware when you take pictures. And I've been there
Absolutely.
and watched how you do it too. So now, again, yes, I think some of that essence that you see is because there's an infrared camera in the back of the photograph. But there is some solid white light in there. Clearly, either something was right up there against that lens. I feel like that's something we would have seen if it was a light energy, as in giving off light. But like you said, maybe it wasn't the kind of energy that is light. Maybe it's just somehow captured into that camera.
Now, do you think the brightness of it is because of the camera's flash? Or do you
Well,
think
it's
that's
over-
just the anomaly itself?
This is 35 millimeter film, right?
Correct.
Right,
Mhm.
so that's
This is color.
overexposure. So this is film, so it takes exposure. So light has to reflect off of the surface and come back to it. Now, when you go and you develop it, the white areas are the overexposed areas on a photograph. So that means in the picture that you took, the area where you have the white, there was something that exposed the film more than the rest of the image in your photo.
And that,
So that's
my
why
dear,
on your negative is black versus when you can develop it into paper, it's that white. So it
And
was
you know what it
something
was?
you think
It
it was
was
some
a
kind
ghost.
of some kind of
It was
energy.
that preacher man, yeah.
Some energy of some sort overexposed that area of that picture. But I
Right.
do like the fact that it was 35 millimeter versus digital photography.
A lot of my older pictures were because,
Right.
again, digital cameras were very expensive. We just couldn't
Right.
afford that.
Yeah, this was the
So, yeah, this was
the 1 hour photo at the
at
drugstore.
Walmart. Well, back
Or
then, I
Walgreens.
don't even think they did 1 hour. It was like next day or something.
Yeah.
Again, I'm trying to tell my age, but
So there's one more phenomenon that happens with photographs, and if you're an investigator listening, you've probably heard of this term before. It's called pareidolia. Pareidolia is the brain's perception of an image that is visually confusing, like shapes in a cloud. Your brain is trying to process what you're seeing as something from memory. So it's trying to determine, what am I looking at?
trying to make sense out of chaos, basically.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's going to tap into your memory, into something that's familiar to you, and that's what you're going to see. So when you stare up at the clouds, as kids, we play
look,
that
there's
game.
a puppy dog.
Yeah, you see a dog in the cloud. It explains that. But it is also the reason why infants recognize their mother. So it's that part of the brain that recognizes an image from your memory. So it's kind of a survival instinct in our brains to make images make sense to our brain. So when we get pictures sent into us and it's somebody saying, there's an image in the window of this house, I was walking by and took a picture. Well, old houses and old glass is not perfectly flat. So it's really easy for there to be reflections from trees and things like that get picked up in a photograph. Or maybe the curtain behind the window was shaped in a certain way, or there was an object behind it and it looked like a lady in white. Our brains are wanting to create an image, a human image out of that. And so it's very, very common to get pictures sent to us of smudges on windows, or somebody drove by a cemetery in their car and they captured what looked like a ghost out there walking around the headstones, but when we look really closely at the picture, we see a perfect handprint on the window of the car. And so we were
Mother
able to,
ghost and 4 other little
right.
ghosts.
So that's what pareidolia is our brain is trying to turn it into a human shape from a confusing image that doesn't make sense.
And
So
I think it can do more than just human. I think it can
oh
see
yeah, other objects,
yeah.
pets, dogs, whatever. It's our brain taking something confusing, some reflection, and it looks like a ghost image. So if you're looking at pictures, look at where this image is. Does it make sense with the claim that they've seen a shadow in this area and you just happen to capture it on your photograph? Why would a ghost be showing up on some random object that has nothing to do with any kind of known activity? I'm trying to think of a specific example. Why does it show up in the glass on your microwave, right? Or why do we
see Jesus on a pancake?
Or in a potato chip?
Right.
Why would he choose to show himself on a potato chip? Or, make it make sense, right? So think from a paranormal perspective. Ghosts are trying to communicate with us, right? Mm-hmm. And they're choosing a way to try to communicate to us that makes sense, right? So if it's a loved one, they might show up to you in a place that makes sense. It wouldn't make sense for a spirit to just show up on your microwave, but it might make sense if they show up on your door or on the glass of a photograph hanging on the wall of someone that they're trying to communicate with. Does it make sense of where this image is showing up? Again, photography is not my favorite because it's 1 millisecond of a capture of a point in time versus video or versus your actual personal experience in witnessing the event. But pareidolia is a real thing. It is more common than actual spirits in photography. I think that's most of the time that's what people are witnessing, aside from slow shutter speed anomalies like light trails or dust orbs. So those are the explanations you'll get from me when you show me a photograph where you think you've caught something paranormal. But we talked about a lot of the pictures that I really have a hard time looking for the logic in. There's just so much going on.
Sure, and some I took were even before you joined my group.
Right, and the apparition photos, especially that one in particular from one of our former clients, we've worked with him a bunch, and he's a private client too, so he doesn't want his name shared. He's not looking for attention from this. So that makes it a lot more believable from my point of view when he submits something to us.
Well, that wasn't the only piece of evidence that we got too, because we had that door, the back door opening on its own.
Right.
Remember
yes,
that?
He sent that to a video of his back door opening by itself.
We got EVPs
and it was
from
a
there.
latched door too.
Oh, yes.
That was really cool. That location gave me one of my best personal experiences on an investigation. The charge in the room when we walked in, we were doing an experiment with some audio.
Oh, I remember
which
that.
We'll talk more about audio and some of the techniques we use. And
we heard the loud, disembodied voice of that woman saying, sorry. Remember that?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yes, and so that's what I mean when there's so many personal experiences, validating experiences that occur, and then you have photography. So it means there's a lot of potential for that location to have some kind of paranormal activity. So if nothing else happened and you just happen to have a photograph, it doesn't strengthen the evidence. You need to have a lot more to back it up to make it something that's worth scratching your head over.
If you're out there listening and you're like, I would like to learn more about some of their cases, well, on our website, www.okpri.com, you can go in there underneath the investigations tab and you can look at a lot of our investigations. Now, that's not all that we've conducted throughout the years, of course, but we're only putting those ones that have some sort of evidence with them. Do we get anything in the way of photos and EVP or video? Or, we're looking for a collection of evidence, and some places that you go, you just don't get that. Maybe you just get something very minimal or just one or two things, and we won't post things like that on our page.
Right. And paranormal activity, if it's a real thing, is a rare thing. So it's not going to happen every time we're on an investigation.
Correct.
It's not going to happen all the time for our clients either. So the environment and the timing have to be just perfect for us to be somewhere to actually capture something.
Well, you know what they say, you got to be at the right place at the right time. And
with the right equipment and the right people.
Yes. Yeah. So our clients live in a place, right? Or maybe they work in a place, because we do a lot of businesses as well. and they are there 365 days a year. And we come in once or twice or 3 times, however many times that we go. And again, are we getting it at the right time where we can come in and get this? We may or may not be.
Yeah, so if the activity is something that occurs frequently, it increases our odds of potentially capturing something. So with that said, if you would like to go see some of the photos that we talked about, you can go to our Instagram page at www.instagram.com/psychic and skeptic, all written out, PSYCHICANDSKEPTIC. And we're going to post those pictures for you so you can see. Or you can go to our website for our paranormal investigation team at www.okpra.com and click on the Photos tab at the top of the page. Or if you'd like to share with us what you think of our podcast or share your own para story, you can email us at psychicandskeptic, all spelled out, at gmail.com.
Maybe you've caught your own paranormal picture and you would like us to take a look at it and maybe talk about it on air. So
you can send that to us, to our paranormal team, and we'll have all of our investigators take a look. And you can send that to us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/okparanormal.
Or just send to the Psychic and Skeptic at gmail.com, our email address. One way or another, it'll get to us.
Right. And if you have some topics that you would like for us to talk about, send those into our email as well. So you can find us wherever you enjoy your podcasts, and thank you for listening.
Because the paranormal is the normal.
Not yet understood.